Can you hear us?
Here, Doris.
Hi.
And, Alan, is anyone else with you?
Ito.
Right here.
Jeannie.
Hi, I popped in.
Ito and Jeannie.
Can you see me, Jesse? Off the side?
Hi, Jeannie. Hi. Hi, Ito. Hi, Jeannie. No, I don't.
I'll move it a little tighter.
Yeah. For a family.
Okay, you're seeing my colleague Allison of the Nautilus exploration team.
Yes, yes, we see
Yes.
both of
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Hi.
And we see the image behind you.
On her right, and behind us, you see the image of the seafloor south of the island of Montserrat that we've just been exploring. And if you've been online the last few minutes, you know that I'm part of the three-person science team now, commenting and trying to understand what we're going by. And we've had a very exciting 2 hours already. We've seen quite a lot of marine life. We saw an octopus, got some very good footage, very close up of a beautiful octopus. Also lots of corals, several kinds of corals, sponges, anemones, several kinds of fish, including a beautiful kind of candy-striped squirrelfish. So it's been a good morning for marine life down here in Montserrat. Have any of you been tuning in to Nautilus Live online from time to time?
Yes.
I looked at the link. How wide is the screen in I guess in real space? So the width of the screen is how many meters? Does that question make sense?
The screen in the... Yes, I understand the question.
Yeah.
In the control van, in the dark room on the top deck of the ship where we sit, watching what the cameras are viewing on the sea floor between, let's say, 200 and 1,000 meters below the ship, we see an image about, I would say, a meter and a half wide.
Wow.
And we have lasers, like a pair of laser pointers that we can bring up on the screen that are 10 centimeters apart. So we can use these pair of laser pointers to look at animals or rocks or other geological features to estimate their actual size.
Right.
We have very powerful cameras, as you've seen, that can zoom in very, very close. Not quite microscopes, but we can get very good high-resolution images of even quite small features. It's harder to see macroscopically because of the darkness. The lights from the Hercules submersible illuminate an area, I would say, within about 10 meters, Allison? 10 meters?
Yeah, depending on our depth. And we also have a fantastic view from above with Argus, which gives us a much larger view. So with the ROV that sits above and kind of gives the bird's eye view of Hercules while it's exploring, it gives us really stunning imagery.
So we watch ourselves watching the sea life. One of the very special aspects of the vessel that I hadn't appreciated is that there are screens everywhere. Where we're sitting right now, we're able to watch the exploration on the seafloor that you see behind us, and in the mess, the dining room on the ship, there are 2 large screens. In the lounge, there are a pair of large screens. In the van, so almost anywhere, and there's also wireless internet on the ship, so we could actually go to the Nautilus Live site if we wanted. So if you're in your cabin, you can also watch. So all 48 people on the vessel, the 31 members of the scientific team and the 17 members of the crew, are well informed about what we're exploring. So word gets out quickly if a hammerhead shark swims by, as one did early this morning. I was asleep, unfortunately. Or a swordfish came and visited the Hercules yesterday. word immediately gets out. So you don't, except when you're sleeping, and you need to sleep, because in fact we work hard and you get tired after 16 hours of being on duty and keeping your balance on ship and doing things. But most of the time, whether you're actually at the control panel as one of the team members actively moderating the exploration, but if you're doing other kinds of things, you're likely to be tuned in and know what's happening. So,
as interns, so they're sitting watch and acting as part of the ROV team, our science team, and also our video team. So it's a great educational opportunity as well as scientific mission.
it's a wonderful team. I'm sure almost every week on the Nautilus is an exciting and good week, but it's a very, very congenial group. The people get along very well, different ages, different backgrounds, and there are people on the ship from Ireland and from Ukraine and from India and from Australia and Canada, as well as quite a few from the US.
Is the footage used for mapping the ocean floor? Is there some kind of accumulation of the data or digitization of the data? I don't know, some way that it translates into maps, actually? Very fine resolution maps, I would imagine.
That's a good question. That's a good question, Ido. And we are actually doing two activities. One is mapping. We are using sonars, multi-beam and side-screen sonars, to make superlative maps of the seafloor. We want good maps before we then use the submersible vehicles to go and look in detail and do make the videos and collect the samples. The maps themselves are useful for understanding the geology, but also the maps are necessary in order to avoid accidents or problems with the remotely operated vehicles, the submersibles. We wouldn't want a submersible to crash into a boulder. So we make these very, very high-quality maps, these so-called multi-beam maps. So we scan an area first, and then we'll send down the submersibles afterwards using these detailed maps we've created. And those detailed maps, after a bit more processing, are available to the world. So in general, almost all the information collected on these expeditions is publicly available. The only real cautions about that are if, for example, the vessel were to come across, the Nautilus were to come across a shipwreck, we wouldn't release that information. We want to make sure that information gets into the right hands first. We don't want so-called reckless treasure hunters suddenly to converge on a site and plunder it. So there would be a few cases in which we wouldn't release some of the data or some of the discoveries we make, or some information on maps, but almost all the information quickly becomes available. It's live. It's Nautilus Live, as you've been seeing. I'd say it's a thrill to be seeing things for the first time that no one has ever seen. To be part of this team of the 48 people on the vessel and the hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people around the world who tune in.
A lot of the areas that we're looking at are largely unexplored, so we don't have the high-resolution maps that we need that Jesse was talking about. So a lot of times we do have to go in and map areas before we go and explore them further.
Along with the marine life, I've been astonished by the scope of the volcanic activity. Montserrat is an island that has 3 volcanoes. We've been exploring the youngest and most active area, the southern end of the island. And the mountain is now about a bit more than 1,000 meters high. Large parts of it have collapsed in the last 20 years into the ocean. And so we can be quite far off the island in 1,000 meters of water, and debris from the volcano are still covering the seafloor. So you only see, so to say, the tip of the iceberg when you see the flows of lava and rubble and rock that are on the island itself from the eruptions and from the collapses associated with the eruptions. But enormous amounts of materials have tumbled down the mountainside deep into the ocean, and of course changed the seafloor, disrupted sea life, created opportunities for recolonization. So but I have to say I've been really impressed by just the scope, the size, the power of a volcano, an island volcano.
You know, Jesse, last week when the boat was off Puerto Rico, there was mention of they thought that they had spotted a new species. In the few days you've been there, has there been any, have there been any spottings of anything that people suspect might be new?
I don't think we certainly haven't collected any specimens of species that I think are likely to be new. We've seen some large animals like six-gill sharks, swordfish, some other large animals, the octopus. We've seen some small. We've seen quite a lot of coral sponges, anemones. I think most of these are known. We have collected some water samples with microbes, with very small life in them. We just collected a kind of biofilm, and my guess is when the DNA sequences are done for some of the water samples, that there will be some new forms of life, new microbial forms of life that at least have not been described before, not been sequenced before.
There was one coral species. I apologize, I don't know what coral it is, but they think that it might be the second sample ever taken of that species.
Wow.
So, not brand new, but fairly new.
There's not a lot of color that you see in the picture. Is that how deep is the floor that we're looking at? And I remember reading that someplace, but this is a good place to check on that. Do you find the absence of color as you get deeper where you're?
Yeah, we're exploring right now about 250 to 300 meters deep, about 750 to 1,000 feet deep. Earlier we were working deeper, further offshore, as deep as about 3,000 feet, 3,500 feet. Of course, light from the sun doesn't reach that deep. The so-called photic zone that light penetrates in the ocean varies depending on the turbidity of the water. In the clearest water, light might penetrate, I would say, maybe 60, 80 meters.
Yep, that's about right.
So we're below where light penetrates,
Right.
Even in very clear water, and in general the Caribbean has quite clear water. So all the light comes from the lights that are on the submersibles. When we do close-ups of the animals, you see there are wonderful colors. A lot of them are pinks, reds. Red is black, actually, in the ocean in some sense. Red is actually the best color for camouflage in the deep sea. It's the hardest color for other animals to perceive. So there are lots of animals that are somewhere in the pink, red, purple spectrum. But we've also seen animals that are yellow, orange. Some of the fish have had some green and blue features, and when we are able to get close to them with the lights and the cameras, I think these might be jacks fishing, swimming behind us. If we go very close up, I think those might have some yellow and also some blue-green on them. So there is color. Now the rock, of course, varies, and the first night I was on duty, we found ourselves in a beautiful rock garden, which had a great variety of colors of rock: red rocks, purple rocks, gray rocks, black rocks, white rocks, yellowish orange rocks. It was very beautiful in the way that rocks can be. And now these aren't highly polished the way a jeweler would do it, but still you also have colors from the rock. The sediments vary between some light sandy sediments to some gray clay-like sediments. Sometimes there'll be more black organic material. Sometimes the sediments will be a little shinier and more reflective. Sometimes they'll be quite dull and flat.
I'm wondering if there's volcanic ash or
I have to
the
say, I haven't
equivalent.
gotten bored looking.
The equivalent of volcanic ash under the water that would kind of coat things. I don't know if that's been.
Yes, exactly right, Ito. Yes.
Is that?
Yes, you're exactly right. That's why we're exploring in this area, Ito. It was these eruptions in 1995, 1996, 2003, 2005, 2006. These eruptions and then these huge avalanches or landslides as the mountain became unstable because of the activity within it. So you have all these different kinds of rock and mud and materials that have come down the mountain into the ocean. At the time of the eruption, there also would have been soot and ash and smoke going up into the atmosphere, and depending on which way the wind was blowing, some of that would have blown over the water where we're exploring and been deposited down either as dry deposition, just particles falling down, or wet deposition if a thunderstorm or rainfall came along and carried it down to the sea surface, and then it would gradually sink to the sea floor.
Right.
Some of those eruptions and avalanches or debris flows also wiped out some towns, and so I think we're also looking for some human artifacts, and we came across what we think is a window, I presume, earlier.
Yes, something that looks like maybe a shutter or a window of some kind. Yeah, one of the main towns of the island of Montserrat was right here, just onshore from where we're exploring. Fortunately, there was some warning about the volcanic activity, so the town was evacuated before the eruption occurred, and no lives were lost. But the entire town of about 3,000 people, I believe, was abandoned, and now you see almost none of it. Basically, you see just this river of rubble and lava. We explored another flank of the volcano earlier in the week, and the flow down the mountain there is called Tar River. It's not the Hudson River. It's not the Connecticut River. It's not the Mississippi. It's just this river, this gray-black river of tar and soot and ash and rubble. But it looks like a river, except there's no liquid. It's just, well, it was a liquid flow in some sense while it was happening. Now we're looking at this area with where the town. There are about 5,000 people who now live on the island of Montserrat. Before all the eruptive activity about 20 years ago, there were more than 12,000 people who lived on the island. So the northern end of the island has been relatively quiet, and most people live there, but this whole southern end of the island has been abandoned. So when you look at the island at night, for example, and of course the sun sets very quickly here in tropical regions, so you go from bright afternoon light to darkness very quickly. You don't have the long, slow sunsets of the higher latitudes. There are no lights on the island. It's just this end of the island. It's just dark. Okay, well, I need to get back up to the van, but thanks, Doris.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Very
much.
interesting. Great to
Fascinating.
And look forward to seeing you Monday morning.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
following.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Allison.